Hi everyone, I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and here with me is Jackie Risotto from Feud, Capote versus the Swans, the woman in charge of all the makeup on this show. And the bulk takes place in the 60s, the 70s. So when you're stepping into like a different time period, how do you think about the actual makeup products that you're using? Can you achieve the effects you want with current products?
Yeah, you can. You just have to like look for the right colors, the right textures, the right finishes, but it's totally achievable, especially these days. There's hundreds and hundreds of makeup companies. So that's more of like, the intensive part about it is like finding what is like the most accurate and like the most spot on because there are so many options out there.
Yeah. Was this a case of, are you trying to emulate certain products, or were you using anything that was vintage in this case?
We didn't really use so much that was vintage. We did use, I believe it was like some Revlon lipsticks and stuff like
Mhm.
that, because a lot of their colors are still the colors that existed, in the 60s and 70s. But we did use a lot of Pat McGrath as well. We really tried to pull from like all different companies, especially there's a company called Besame when it comes to lipsticks, and they accurately like have new formula, but they really accurately, like achieve the colors. Like it's really just so much about the colors that were
Mm.
used in these specific times. So yeah, it's fun to play around. It's fun to see also, what works for people, like what works for a certain actor, like the color, So there is a lot that goes into it because you want to be historically accurate, but you also want to, pick shades and finishes that flatter, the actor. So
Yeah, I noticed, I think something that stood out to me is was a lot of the women's eyes. They have this kind of like thick eyeliner, the lashes are done a certain way. Uh how do you approach that? What are the trends that you're going for in that era?
yeah, so like, with 60s, it was like the mod, period. So there was heavy eyeliner, there was more cut crease, there was bigger lashes. And then in the 70s, it kind of became more of a natural, and more of a natural eye. So like the colors were like more browns and taupes, the lashes were more thin. They were still nice and long and elegant, but they weren't as flashy. So I just did so much research, honestly, like with the different time zones. I really wanted to nail not only like the colors, but also, these are real women that the actors were portraying. So we also wanted to stay in line. It really like there's like three parts that go into it, right? It's like what was going on in makeup at that time, what works for the actor, and then what like what works for the actor, and then just like what, sorry, my dog is like
No
whining.
worries.
I'm sorry if you can hear it. What works for the actor and just like being historically accurate. Like, so there's a lot that goes into it.
Well, I wanted to mention those women because the all these swans were real people who existed, and not only that, but they were photographed quite often because they're these
Oh
high
yeah.
society women. So how does that kind of change your process? Because then it becomes not just about what is good for the
Right.
actor, it's about recreating something.
Right. It's a little bit of trial and error. It's like matching, like, you really want to, like, for example, Diane Lane, who played Slim Keith, Slim was more of a lip, where she didn't do too much of a heavy eye. So we wanted to, show that with Diane, in her portrayal of Slim Keith. So we like bumped up the lips a lot, we did the eyes a little bit more subdued and toned down. Um, but we still wanted it to be historically accurate, so it is a little bit of trial and error, I have to say, like just making sure, like finding what works for the woman, but that she still is giving Slim Keith.
Yeah. You also have them. There's this great episode at the very infamous black and white ball, and I
Yes.
know you've worked in black and white before with
Yes.
Maestro, so you have experience here.
Yeah.
How does that filming style affect
Just give me
what you
one.
need to choose for makeup?
It's interesting that you say that because with Maestro, and I had done Maestro right before this show. So, I did have that experience with the black and white, and we did do a lot of kind of, like camera tests for Maestro, including, testing lip colors, testing like blushes and things like that, because, with black and white, blush kind of, it doesn't so much read as blush. It's gonna read more like a bruise. So I had that experience, and especially with the lips, because you could put on a shade of red, that could look beautiful in color, but when it comes to black and white, it's reading black or it's reading like nude. So it really is important to just, speak, of course, with like the cinematographer, the DP, the guy, like, you want to just make sure you guys are all on the same page so that it's just reading as you want it to, and not something too far off.
Is that you mentioned you had a lot of testing for Maestro? Do you have that same kind of opportunity on a series? I know the schedule, the pacing goes very quickly.
Yeah, for this one, we did have a really great amount of prep time, which was great. And we did have multiple camera tests, which were really helpful. It was really great.
And that scene, the black and white ball is just, it's huge. There's so many people on
I
camera that are in
can't.
full glam. Like what is the team like putting that together?
I have to say, my additionals that I had were incredible. Could not have done it without them. My team, just in general, like I cannot say enough about our team. Like we just worked all together so hard. And really, like everybody put like they're all into it. But yeah, I think our additional count, I think we had like 20 people in background that day, and they all just cared so much, and the makeups just were so beautiful, the makeups that came out of there. And I'm so glad that with the black and white ball that you really like saw a lot of the makeup, like you did see a lot of the background, because these like people just looked insanely good. I'm so sorry, my dog. I'm just gonna close
It's
her
okay.
out. I'm so sorry. She whines, and I just like, I don't want it to affect the volume. Anyway,
No worries.
a cutie, but
Um,
she's like,
yeah, I know the feeling with mine. Um,
yeah,
these women too, I think the Swans were these women who wanted this air of perfection, this flawlessness to everything about their image.
yeah.
So what kind of pressure, what kind of practices does that, imbue in your makeup?
We just wanted everything to look perfect, right? Like we just wanted the makeups to just be like these women that just stepped out of like a magazine. So we were just very attentive to making sure that they looked glamorous with their makeup all the time. Unless there was a specific scene, there's the scene with Callista, and she's like, taken down. So if there were certain scenes where they're showing more of their vulnerability, we didn't do makeup to the extent. But like these women stepped out of they did not step out of the house without, full glam. So we just really wanted to make sure. And we worked so closely with hair and wardrobe, of course, and like it really felt like such an amazing collaboration.
Yeah. Well, that it's interesting because those moments where they're not, there are very few moments where they're not in like full glam makeup, right? Like
Very
when
few.
Slim is in bed with Babe's husband and her
Yes.
hair is suddenly unkempt, it feels
Hmm.
shocking most to
Yeah.
see the characters like
And
that.
then that's like what we wanted. That's what we wanted. We wanted it to feel like shocking, like, like seeing them like more stripped down, because you don't see that side of these women, you know?
Yeah. And of course, it's not all about the Swans. Capote is also another half of the equation here. Um, Tom Hollander has such a great transformation into
Yeah.
him. But we've seen, versions of this character on screen before. Was there pressure? How to make him look a certain way? How did you kind of
I
negotiate
always,
that?
yeah, I always put a fair amount of pressure on myself because I am a perfectionist as well. And I love doing these projects. Like, when I did Michelle Williams as Gwen Verdon for Fosse Verdon, like I just really, I really just want it to be like, as accurate as possible, but what works for the character. So with Tom, obviously he has not played like this role before, but like other people have. So I think with him and I, like we just really wanted to find a place that felt good for both of us in terms of the makeup. You know, you see Capote go through like this whole, you know, ups and downs and highs and lows and, you know, sober and drunk. And he also is aging. So like throughout the process. So we really like just wanted to make sure, like we paid such delicate attention to really each scene that he's in, you know, whether it was him looking more dehydrated, whether it was like his lips being more dry or, you know, more having more color in his face, or like when he's on TV and he's drunk being interviewed, you know, making sure that he looks a certain way. So it's tricky, but I feel so happy with the work that we did. You know, I watched every episode obviously, and I'm so critical, and I was just, you know, really happy with where we started and where we ended and everything in between.
Yeah, it's this version we, you know, the stories that have been told about Capote previously are usually him at a high point. This is
Mm.
him kind of in a downward spiral for a lot of this
Yeah,
series. So
definitely.
how did you chart, like what did you do to kind of chart his deterioration with alcohol use?
Yeah, well, you know, of course I had my breakdown, and then just like determining, but do you mean like with physically with my makeup, like with the
Yeah,
techniques?
yeah,
So, you know, we would do like more puffy eyes. Like when he was younger, like when we did the black and white ball, you know, I did you know, we made his skin look more healthy, not as much redness and not as much, you know, like not as much texture. I would use Plexiderm under his eyes to kind of tighten up the bags. I would, you know, we use lifts just to kind of give him a more like tightened up, like elevated appearance. And then, you know, as he becomes more of an alcoholic and as he gets older, you know, took the lifts off. You know, Tom obviously had gained weight for the role, which helped. And I really just added more texture to his skin. I would emphasize his bags. I would make his eyes more red. Um, you know, I think a lot of it I would spatter, which is basically, you know, just like giving him more freckles and more like redness, like rosacea to like break it up. And then, you know, if there was a scene where he was on TV, I would like put foundation on him, but then we would also make him more sweaty, you know, because he would be wearing foundation, right, to be on,
mm,
you know, a TV show. Um, but like I said, I mean, we really each scene we paid such delicate attention to because we just really wanted it to be so as accurate as possible in his appearance.
mm. I have to imagine with characters like this where there is a transformation, it must be a really cool moment to see the actor see themselves for the first time in full makeup. What was that like when Tom Hollander got to see himself as Capote for the first time?
It was such a beautiful thing, really, honestly, because he really, and like, you know, Tom and I have had conversations about how like the hair and makeup really like helped him get into character. So, you know, we of course did tests and stuff, but like just seeing, you know, once we nailed it and just seeing him, he's just, you know, he was Capote, he was Truman Capote. Then
Yeah.
he starts talking in the voice, and you're like, holy cow, he's Truman Capote. It's weird because I would watch him in the chair. You know, he'd start off as Tom, and then we'd add the makeup, and then he'd go back to hair. Like, you know, we would do a whole back and forth thing, and then he'd come to me for like final checks. And, you know, at that point, he's been through hair and makeup, and he's starting. You know, he's in wardrobe and he's talking, and it's just insane to see like the whole process come together. And then forget about it. Once he was on stage, I was like, wow, so cool.
Have you ever had an actor who, you know, wants to work something a little bit more and they say, "Oh, I really need this one final thing, you know, before the character's complete." Have you ever been adding that one last thing that worked for an actor?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure because you kind of like you like for Chloe, for example, like you know, she added like a mole because like CZ Guest would kind of like, but you know, that wasn't originally what we were thinking. Like, you know, so there are things once you're like in it and once you're playing around and once you're like, you know, you're all there together, there's something about the energy of a hair and makeup trailer that like you can't like define unless you're in it, but it's kind of it becomes very creative and it's a really cool, like beautiful thing to kind of see how passionate everyone was and how much hard work and dedication everybody put in. It really is like a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah. Well, you for your work, you won an Emmy for Fosse Verdon, which is another Ryan Murphy production. Do you have a favorite experience, a favorite memory from that Emmy
And Fosse
experience?
Verdon, yeah, I mean, the whole thing was amazing, but just like the bond that I formed with me and Nicole Bridgeford, who did, Michelle's hair, and Michelle, like the three of us, and then, Jackie Girt, who was her costumer, like the bond that we, you know, kind of share now from that is just like, I mean, we're still such great friends to this day. We kind of became family on that job, and it's just, these are hard jobs that we're doing. So to have people around you that kind of like you're all in it together, there's like nothing more bonding like in an experience than that.
Well, it's once again incredible work here on this season of Feud. So thank you so much, Jackie, for sitting down with me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to talk about it. I love talking about Feud. I could talk about it. Like it's just so great.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.